Hairstories 5. Well, the theme for Hairstories 5 is about the bob and the technique and the fascination that me and Michael have had with it for over 20 years now. As you've seen in the magazine itself, we're going to go back to who we think created the first media bob, which was Antoine. And it's around about the 1920s, and he, for us, was instrumental in bringing this haircut to the media. It was a haircut that was probably done millions of times on kids, usually, but for the first woman to wear it who was an actress, this was quite groundbreaking. In the 1960s, we had Vidal Sassoon, the architect of hairdressing. He brought the architecture to cutting that was never really defined. He allowed us to learn and teach with his methods, which have been used all over the world time and time again. Christian, the first time I saw Christian's work, got goosebumps, and it was when he did the undercut. Now, an undercut is where he took a bob and he used a pair of clippers quite aggressively just to shave all the underneath. Now, that was breakthrough for us. It was just really taking something and saying, you know what, I'm going to change the whole look of this, and he did. And phenomenal haircut. I'll still remember the days of watching that over and over again in the 1980s. And Paul Rowland. Now, here's a man who has multiple talents, and we chose him because he's got an aesthetic and an eye that I very rarely see. And fascinated by the way he cuts hair. He's no formal training. We believe in great standards, so it's not what I recommend for every hairdresser. He's got an idea, an image, and he doesn't care how he gets there. And I thought it'd be fascinating for us to look at this person and see what really motivates him. As you know, in Hairstories, we like to give people a challenge. We took 3 kids, gave them a challenge of creating a bob, what we call a faux bob, without doing a haircut. And they had to come up with a look that you, in your own salon, could do. And it was quite a challenge, and as you'll see, really good fun. With the colour story, I wanted to take 3 wigs and have Larry and Victoria work on them for me. The idea was to create 3 different colours and textures that represented different times with the bob itself. We looked back 86 years to Antoine, and for Larry, he wanted to look 86 years into the future. And as you'll see, a fascinating result with this colour.
My name is Paul Rowland. I have Supreme models, women models. I cut hair, I take pictures, paint, do it all. Jack of all trades, master of all. The reason I got into this business is because I would look at magazines, and it's the whole fantasy of something. You live in mid-America, and you see this like fantastic, it's a fantasy. So fashion for me was always that. It was always about creating something that really wasn't real. Cutting hair is a bit like sculpting. So everything I do is based on an art reference. Like in school, I sculpted. So for me, it's really kind of sculpting hair. So I was never really intimidated about it. And on that note, also, hair grows. So if you kind of mess it up, it's going to grow out. And even when it's messed up, it looks better than when it's just so kind of manicured. For me, it's not just about cutting hair, it's the whole package. I think hair obviously has a major impact, on anyone, but in fashion, it's a very big thing. So I do think by cutting the hair, it can launch a girl's career. And I think my aesthetic on girls is fairly specific. I like girls that are, obviously very tall, skinny, a bit kind of masculine, because that's just what I find beautiful. And those girls with these kind of haircuts, it looks right on. Well, there's nothing worse than a bob on a pretty girl. I mean, it becomes like a disaster. So if you put a bob on a girl that's kind of, very masculine, because there's something very masculine about that haircut, which makes it very sexy, then it becomes so much more powerful. Actually, I try to bring out kind of flaws on girls, like if they have kind of weird ears, like I like that. If they have like, I don't know, this kind of awkwardness, then I think you kind of build on that. I think it's all about that. The reason I started giving girls makeovers was because I would kind of have an idea in my head, and I found it very difficult to kind of communicate that idea to someone else and have it be kind of what I was thinking. I was the first person to cut Kate Moss's bangs, and when Kate started, I was her agent for many years, from when she was like 15. I think even if you give someone like an amazing haircut and they're not really ready for it, they're still not going to be ready for it. So sometimes I think, people have to be ready for change. And if they're not, then, you have to somehow convince them that that change is good. But there are times girls don't want to do it. I mean, there are times that, they're afraid. They have, there's the fear. People are scared. I think this is the problem from hairdressers to anyone in life. People's life is basically ruled by fear. And, mine included. And I think every day is a day where you have to get up and kind of face your fear and move through that. And that's only when great things are going to happen. I mean, I've ruined girls' hair, yeah, of course. No one that's great at anything does something and doesn't make mistakes. But usually when I start cutting hair, it kind of finds its shape. I don't start out with like a clear-cut idea. I just kind of start, and it's by the hair texture, it's by the girl, it's by her neck, it's by, it's the face, the proportion. And then you just start, like doing it, and it kind of comes together. Well, I think sometimes being trained can be the worst thing for anyone in anything. As an agent, as anything, everyone for their own comfort wants you to be in a box. So, you're a hairdresser, I'm an agent, he sweeps streets, whatever. I think the reason you're here is because, I refuse to kind of be that. I think I have many talents. I think I'm talented. I can cut hair, I can take pictures. I can't be an accountant, I'm not stupid. But I really believe people should not limit themselves, because only we limit ourselves. Hair and makeup people are on a set can be very, they have tunnel vision, some of them, So in other words, it's not really about the whole photo, it's just about the hair. And unless you're doing a hair story, then I can understand that. But it's really about a collective kind of way of working, and everybody working to make a great picture. I like to touch the hair, like, give it that kind of signature that you do. And I think some hairdressers, they have a hard time with that because, they're so like, closed in their own little box. And it's just not about you, it's about the picture. Well, I think over the years we've worked very well with Bumble, and I know a lot of hairdressers that work for Bumble that I like, and we started sending girls to Bumble, and they did a good job from the color and to the cut. Some people did a good job, not everyone, honestly. And it just was it's a good relationship. I love hair that looks lived in. It's not like something's happening here and then there's something totally else happening. You know what I mean? It becomes like a helmet. I love girls that don't comb their hair, they get out of bed. I know people say that, but like, the best girls are girls that don't really give a shit, and they have good hair, they have a good haircut, and they don't do anything. And they walk in and people are like, oh my God. And, and then that's crazy because people pay us so much money to try to have that. But the point is they don't have it here. So they're never gonna have it. I think style is something you're either born with or you're not. I think you can learn to look. People can give you an image, but if you don't feel that, I don't think it translates. It's not really even about what you wear, it's how you wear it. Yeah. Whether it's your hair or your makeup or, your jeans. It's all how you kind of rock it. I only do this to create change. It's like anything in my life, that's all. I really could care less. Like, if you like it, you don't like it, it doesn't matter to me. It's not gonna stop me. If anything, it would only fuel me. The point is to create some kind of reaction, whether it's a good one or a bad one. If I've done that, then I feel I've kind of done my job.
I'm Victoria Hunter and I'm the colour director at Bumble and Bumble. I am an editorial colourist and I have just helped launch the Colour School.
My name's Larry Responti. I'm an editorial colorist for Bumble and Bumble. I work at both of the salons. I'm fortunate enough to work uptown and downtown. Photo shoots, movies, television commercials, all of the above. The idea came from not wanting to do bobs that have been done in the past or we have been doing, and I wanted to move forward and try to challenge myself and see what might happen in the future.
I went on the internet and I looked up, actually typed in, what will the future look like in 100 years? And most of the stories were pretty grim.
We just tried to be green, basically. We're trying to lump the whole thing together, whether it's energy depletion or the future or anything. We're trying to go for a more natural effect. We tried to find natural substance or materials that we could gather only a block away from our salon, and with limited amount of time and limited amount of resources, this is what we came up with. It wasn't like this is what's going to be in the future. This is actually just the reference, the idea behind it. This was just a minimal amount of research, quickly, cutthroat, and that's how this came out. That's the idea.
So the next step was we were mic'd up and we walked over to the Chelsea market. What we were looking for in all the different shops was something that would actually stain the hair and keep, we were going to be going back to Bumble and putting this, well, Larry was, on his wig. So we needed something that was going to stain the hair and see what colour it would end up being. Oh, here it is. That's the one.
And it's
there.
More garbage?
There. That's it.
Can we ask them
Can
for
we
it?
ask them? We'll just take it.
Basically, in the flower shop, we went in for inspiration. It was the first stop. It's the first store that you see. Since we were going green, that probably was a good idea to go in there. And we found pollen, which is a really good staining agent. And we picked up all the leftover green that we saw on the ground and asked them if we could take it. And we also saw some kind of grass that we asked to take for inspiration for the color. Oh, look at this.
That's so cool.
Let's just take it for inspiration.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Should we steal this also?
No.
Oh.
It was called blue jay grass.
That's it,
And it
blue
was
jay
like a really vivid, bright orange colour, luminous orange. That was our inspiration. Then we went to the Seafood Palace and we looked for squid ink, which we were told was very expensive. That's all we were told for quite some time.
And that it would definitely stain.
Yes.
We were wondering if you had any squid ink.
Squid ink.
Squid ink.
You know squid?
Yeah,
The
he
ink?
knows what it is.
Do you think this stains?
That definitely stains. It was $49.95 though. It's the most expensive thing we bought, and it didn't really work at all, and it smells really bad. We're probably gonna come up with a diet out of this whole thing. We'll be rich and famous, we won't even care about this.
Then we went to the Italian place and we found curry powder and paprika.
No, it was Belgian paprika,
Well, it was paprika.
but it was a special kind of paprika.
Shut up.
It was different color.
It was bright red. We went to the fruit market and bought the pomegranates. It stains?
Pomegranates. This
Really?
stains like crazy.
Inside?
This stains so much.
Oh, really? We'll get that.
Yeah, well, it stains a lot.
Oh,
like
that's
it stains your
fantastic.
fingers.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, this stains your fingers. We'll get one.
Will we get one?
There's so much in
two?
here, we don't need it.
All right. And beetroots, blueberries, blackberries.
We got a lot of vibrancy, we got a lot of depth. I think we
Okay.
can come up with a few different colors actually,
Okay.
as opposed to just trying to mush this all together and coming out
Well, because if we mush it all together, then it'll just come out like mush.
mush. That's why we should create a few different colors and see which one
Right,
works out
exactly.
the best.
Let's see what we have here.
We made piles of the stuff we had. We put it separately, and then we
Oh, made little swatches of hair from the actual wig that Larry would be colouring. So they were all blonde swatches that we could then use all of our materials and put them on the swatches to see which colours we liked the best. And then that's how Larry chose what he was going to use.
As of right now, we had limited time, like I said, and limited resource, so we either used a blender or we mushed it up by hand or we mixed it with a little bit of water or chopped it up and then just kind of rubbed it in. So we found certain things that actually worked, and that's what we went along with to do.
We juiced the beets, we mushed up the blackberries, and we also vitamized the grass that we'd gotten from the florist shop. Speak about your pomegranates.
No, you're all right. We de-seeded the pomegranate and mushed them. We basically made a smoothie, but without anything else in it.
Right. And then we took it down to the swatches and applied it to the swatches. And we also mixed the curry powder with water and made a
Paprika.
paste. The paprika was mixed with water and we made a paste out of that.
The squid ink, we went straight in with the squid ink thinking it would die because it stains everything but hair, obviously.
The prettiest was definitely in my opinion anyway, was the pomegranate and beet juice that was mixed together, because when it came out, it was this beautiful champagne pink colour that, like, colourists try to get that and you really can't find it, and we found it in nature.
It was very pretty, I agree as well. But I also liked the blueberry, the way that looked.
That looked
at the
great
end.
too.
Very steel, like gunmetal. Well, there was 4 on the final wig. Curry powder was one of them, the blackberry, and then a mixture of pomegranate and beet juice together. The curry had this bright depth to it, which sounds kind of weird. When we work with chemicals, depth is usually dark, and I wanted to reverse what we usually do as putting darker roots. So I wanted something really bright. I took the curry powder and I created half a base. I didn't go from roots to ends. I did it from the roots to the mid shaft, creating like a half of a single process, and left the underneath for the beetroot and the pomegranate. And then I wanted to cover those bright, deep colors with the darker color, which was the blackberry. So I put that over the whole thing I put it on all the ends, and then I put it on over the whole wig to subtle it out a bit. And that's the technique I used. So the wig is not a traditional color. We could have probably produced just a staining agent, but you're all probably used to having toners and stuff like that and wouldn't be so impressed. So we wanted to use it it in a proper way and have colors that were vibrant and lasted and could endure being rinsed and washed. And this is the result that you're going to be seeing on film, is what you get. I was at the photo shoot, and Howard McLaren cut it for us and styled it, and it was quite amazing to see it come to fruition. It was really nice. It looked good. I was very happy with it. It worked really well on the model. This wig, oddly enough, it had great balance on people's skin. It was, which is the most important thing we look for when we do color, is skin tones. And oddly enough, with this bright yellow and these silvery colors and pink champagne-y tones, balanced out the skin tone in the model's face. But we wanted to have something that would be fun, creative, maybe used in the editorial world with like-minded people that could see the vision.
What I learned through this experience, well, firstly, it was great for me because Howard had given us a project, but Larry took it a step further, and so that inspired me, because I think that I would have just ended up doing a brunette, a blonde and a redhead, and so that made me stretch, and just his idea and thinking of a Bob of the future then made me think, and it was great to have somebody to inspire me.
What we're trying to say is to expand your mind, your creativity, and your thought to help you on your regular day work. It's not really, like I said before, about the final result. It's about the thought behind it, the challenge behind it. What I've learned is, that there's no limit in what we do, and when we're pushing the boundaries, that's going to make us all better.
Thanks for coming. I know it's early, and you guys normally are up a lot later. But what I want to do is offer a project to three of you about the Hairstories 5, which is based on Bob's, variations of them, what is and what is, and it's the whole sort of life of the haircut from, I guess we'll take it from Antoine. Hairstories 5 was a great opportunity for us to do a bit of styling. So I chose three individuals, Nikki Ann, Rebecca and James, who had different backgrounds at Bumble, different levels of experience. Rebecca being the youngest one, James had come to us a couple of years ago, and Nikki Ann has been here for quite a few years now, I think maybe up to 8 years. I think between the three of you have, to me, a great range. Nikki teaches the backstage classes and the sort of standards for our styling. James is out there working with Laurent. He's been with Jimmy Paul, doing his own thing now. So again, somebody who's in action. And Rebecca, who, the newest of the hair cutters. And I think, I see a lot of great work coming from you guys, and I think it's a time for you to show what you're doing and kind of explain it, because, hairdressing, as you know, is a process. You start with an idea, and there's a middle bit of doing it, then there's an end result, which is a photograph. We're going to go through this process with you. We're going to film it, some of the parts. You can work together on your ideas if you need help as a team. You can work separately, but ultimately, I want three different looks.
Howard wanted to create bobs without cutting and using more of a styling techniques.
And that was when he introduced the idea of doing this sort of challenge to create looks that would be and mimic bobs. Well, I thought it sounded like a lot of fun. I love the idea of doing new things and, taking on the challenge and pushing myself to discover things about hair.
I asked them all to come up with references and models You know, models are, our face is the most important thing. We spoke about Michael taking the photographs, who would be styling it, you know, the whole team involved with it. And to me, it's crucial that you find a face, you know, because they weren't limited to cutting. So if they found a face, then they could put wefts or, you know, various things on it to create that look. The second meeting was a week later, and they came in, and James had a lot of books with him, varying from British, you know, 60s, rockabilly, Teddy Boys. Do you want to explain some of your references, because I find them absolutely fascinating, some of them, because they range from, you know, Roxy music here to, you know, kind of mod books. Then you've got this great book on Japanese Teddy Boys, which I've never seen. I think it's fascinating, that culture. And
yeah, it's a whole nother thing.
but it's all street people.
Yeah.
There's no models.
Yeah. The meeting originally, it got off to a good start. I think we were all really excited. It's a very busy time of the year, so we're trying to work in everyone's schedule, salon, and editorial work, how we were actually going to do this, finding the model. The inspiration was kind of, there was a large amount of inspiration, so I think we had to kind of narrow it down a little bit.
I mean, the image that I was kind of calling on in my mind was a much more modish Sassoon type image. I was actually, I think, in my mind thinking of something more wig-like, almost, and heavy as a reference in my mind about a look that I'd want to create.
We had a lot of different references from Rebecca's as well as James. James brought in some really cool books, you know, as well. And I think Howard was really excited.
The references were a bit all over the place. You know, I'd hoped that they would come in with a more structured idea between them, that what each of them were going to do. I know we talked about different things, about feathers and boys and all that, but remember, it's a class. We talked about using real hair. You have to think, how can they replicate this? And that was the beauty of when Vidal and stuff was doing stuff, it was like, they did haircuts that you could do over and over again. That's why they became really popular. The problem was when they showed me they showed me one model that they'd found, and I wasn't very happy with it. I had quite a long talk with them about, you know, that the face has to be right. Remember that the face is the most important thing.
I think, yeah, we have tons of, I think we have a lot of hair inspiration, but not a lot of, like, human, like a girl, a subject to inspire us.
Next
That's where we found kind of hit a wall so far.
I'm kind of worried because we're shooting in a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Us too.
So I think it's, you have to look for the face now. It doesn't matter about the hair. Hair we can make, we can hide it away, but it's about the face. So that's what we've got to find now, is that kind of attitude. Because remember, when you're doing a shoot, you have to think, or you're doing a presentation, think about your audience. For a shoot, think about the photographer. Michael won't shoot anybody, you know, and I think the respect to a photographer when you're working with them, or anybody you have to join up with, especially in editorial, you have to know who you're working with and what kind of work they like to do. So walking in with anybody off the street wasn't an option for me. All right. Cool. I know you've got to go to work.
No, it's exciting, Howard.
Yeah.
So
I'll give you a call later today and let you know the status on that. I have 2 girls that I'm thinking.
but remember time. We're shooting. I've got a schedule. We left, you know, that with, I felt that they really got it, because I did, you know, I didn't hold back with them, and you know, to me, their success really is my success, and failure wasn't an option. How many hair miles have you got?
So we're just gonna find Howard. Okay. Oh, Howard.
Oh, hey. Okay.
Very open.
And do you feel comfortable, like, in front of the camera being photographed?
Yeah.
Can I take your phone number down?
Cool. So I have a couple more supposed to be coming sometimes.
Okay.
around
What about
now.
Rebecca and James?
James is right now at a shoot.
Okay.
And him and I have been texting each other.
Okay.
So he's also on the prowl.
Okay. What about technique? Have you thought about anything?
I mean, I
Like
was
how
thinking.
to get it? Because I really want, I want one done with bread, and
Okay.
either you or Rebecca are going to
Okay.
have to do that. The next time I met with them, I had been working with Kristen all week. We had been casting for the rest of the Hairstories shoot, so we were very busy. You know, everybody's busy, you know, but at some point you're going to have to find the time for the job you're about to do. Because you can do it where it's just underneath, even a roll or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You could do a rope braid or even a
Right.
regular braid or even a fishtail braid. I think all that. And I'm going to also practice on my doll at home as well.
Yeah?
The braiding I wanted to do was the fishtail braiding. And I brought in a doll head, and I knew Howard was going to be at the salon on Monday. And I had an idea of the map of how I wanted to start the braiding. And I wanted to work with Howard as well and get his opinion on it. And it was great because it allowed me to be away from everything else and just only focus on just practicing on that braiding. And, you know, I practiced for like 6 hours, and, you know, I thought that was, I mean, that really inspired me just to be there and practice and, you know, have a rapport with Howard with it and get his ideas and opinions as well.
So we got you a model because you couldn't get one. Because you what?
Because I suck.
Because you suck? I don't think you suck. You wouldn't be here if you sucked. I think it was
It's
kind of
definitely
overwhelming.
yeah.
And at this point, I can't afford failure,
Right.
right? And
Right.
I can't afford you to be
Or to
freaked out.
compromise.
Be freaked out about getting a model and then compromise on the hair. What I need you to do now is just work on the hair. So KK is going to
See my model.
be your girl. So what do you want to do?
You know, the model searching is becoming pretty difficult, and then talking to Kristen and deciding that I would end up using her because she offered her time and availability. And having seen her, I kind of instantly knew what I want to do, more based upon her face.
Jimmy, I got where'd you get that girl? She's fantastic.
Worked with her a few times,
All right.
but she's kind of more, she's a street casted person.
Right, she is?
Yeah. She,
Very good.
she does some acting and stuff. She has a
She's up
ton.
for Tuesday, yeah?
Tuesday?
Have a seat.
Okay.
By Thursday, I hadn't had much joy with the kids. Nikki Ann had come down with a couple of options. She actually got me a very great model who I used, Nicoletta, for a haircut, but I don't think she was right for, you know, they weren't cutting hair, so I grabbed her and she was a haircut model. Her hair wasn't really long enough to do much with, and especially Nikki Ann was talking about braiding, so we looked at a couple more girls and I didn't think that they were appropriate either, and Nikki Ann was really, really trying. I spoke to Kristen, that was on the Thursday, about finding models for them. We spoke to Michael saying that we'd have to step in and take over this process because it wasn't, you know, I've got a shoot in a week and I can't end up with nothing. You know, we're having production meetings with Michael and he didn't say much, but he looked a little bit worried that we didn't have any models yet.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah, I was feeling a little worried.
And I think, as I was saying to Rebecca, you know, I'll always be there as a safety net until you get, you know, someday you're going to have to get it, you know, and so I think you can rely on us that you're not going to be left stranded, you know. Ultimately, it's a big deal, so we were going to cover for all of you. we girls an option for you, but you found one, which is great. Brilliant girl. James had emailed me that day a photograph of a girl who looked very interesting, and I was delighted that he'd finally come up with someone.
I think Howard was being really supportive with trying to get us to do it, but it was also time to be like, look at, the shoot's in a few days, you need to figure this out, pull it together. So it was kind of a time where there was a little bit more pressure for us to get out there and do it. So I think we all started, calling each other, texting each other, trying to figure out who has models, different possibilities, and then we kind of pulled it together. My first instinct with her would be probably doing a couple braids just to get it as flat as possible.
She would be perfect for, I think, the outside rope braid to make a bob.
Okay.
And if you don't want to do that, then I'll swap yours with Nikki's.
No, I'm into the idea. I'm totally into the idea.
You have to let them get to a certain point before you step in. If you control everything about a challenge or what the kids have to do, when you do let the bike go and the training wheels are off and they fall down, they're going to put them right back on, and you have to keep protecting them all the time. And that's something that we can't afford to do.
When I first came into the studio, I was a little nervous, but I was excited and had prepared my WEFs beforehand, and I'm just ready to go to, start and get going.
There was a little bit of tension when we came on the set because we knew how much work had to be done. There's a lot of braiding involved, and there was the three of us. We had three models, and we realized at that point that we would have to try to assist each other while doing our looks.
Everybody's got their models. You were practicing. I think you guys are well prepared. What we need to do today is function as a team and getting on set with the girls at the right time. We've got to talk to Liz, Voltaire, Michael about what we're shooting. You going with the braids?
Yep.
Going with the braids? You got your wefts? All right, magic. The Wednesday came and I felt actually quite relaxed because, midway through the week, the kids were coming in. I felt that they could pull it off, and there would be some challenges. We had a meeting right away in the morning. I had a meeting with them, and together as a little group, and explained that we had to stagger the looks. They couldn't end up all at the same place at the same time. I'd like somebody to be ready 11:30. Now, who's going to be the fastest? How long would you need?
I think like an hour and a half.
Me too.
90 minutes. I can't have these all ready at the same time, so let's work out who needs the most work. Maybe she starts and we can help her.
Okay.
And then we get it, because two things, 11:30 and then 12:30, 1:30. The light's done at 3, the good light. So what I do, especially with the braids, is take them out and see the texture with this kind of shape in it, which I think will be very cool, especially if we get the golden light.
I think we kind of went over to our stations to start working, and we all sort of realized that we were, Howard kept asking who's going to be ready first and how long are we all going to take, and I had already kind of thought I was going to take at least 3 hours because I knew that I was braiding the whole head.
We sat back down, kind of went over everything we were going to do, and try to get somewhat of a game plan of how long it was going to be and how long it was going to take us, which was completely off.
They started, and I think the first girl was supposed to be finished about 2 hours. I think we started at 9:30. 11:30, we're supposed to have a girl in makeup and shooting her by 12:15, 12:30, fully, first look. Because the idea was to do a couple of looks, With photography, when you put a girl on set, that's when the hair starts to work. You get to a certain point, the idea's there, but when you put her on set and you look at a Polaroid or you look at on the screen, you see what you have to do to finish it. At 11:30 came and it went. 12:30 came and went. 1 o'clock, the other makeup artist had to leave. By 2 o'clock, I was getting a bit anxious. All right, James, so you spent about an hour and a half doing this lovely detail here.
Well,
How's it going? Is it tougher than you thought?
Yeah, it took an hour to section her hair, and then we started.
Okay. Now, she knitted a cozy for her cup in the same time that you took to do this.
I know.
Should she be doing the hair and you should be
I should
knitting?
learn to knit, yeah.
It's difficult, right? You've got pretty sausagey fingers, right? You should be done by tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, yeah,
Good.
noon.
Because the shoot's today. Anytime you're ready. All right, Rebecca, so it's been what, 2 hours? And because we were supposed to be shooting at 12:30.
No, I wasn't.
Okay,
Actually.
it's longer than we thought.
Right, yeah, definitely. I had the original initial braid that I did that I thought would work seemed too bulky, and I had to redo it twice.
Do you need help putting the tracks in?
It's something I could do alone. I think if we're with time being a factor, it's much helpful to have another set of
So
hands.
I'm going to help you put the tracks in, and we'll get
That'd be
this
great.
going, right?
Let's
All
do
right.
it.
Good. And next time, I'll get somebody who can braid. All right, Nikki, so...
How long has it been? It took me a lot longer because I needed a little more help with it. But
Do you think you needed an assistant?
yeah, definitely, to help me. When James came in to help me with the sectioning, I moved a little bit quicker.
What did you do in the back here? That's cool.
In the back, I just backcombed everything up to the occipital bone, and then when I got above it, I just started lacing it.
Could you do a whole bob like this?
Of course,
How long
totally.
would that take?
2 minutes.
It's an intense braid though. Fishtail braid is pretty...
Because you have to take such small sections.
But this isn't it, right? You're going to do something here?
Yeah, and then what I'm going to do is pull all this apart.
So let her go to makeup and we'll
Okay.
try and shoot it before the sun goes down.
Cool.
The best lesson of any challenge was for us, the one here was that they were totally unprepared. They were unprepared and inexperienced at what they were trying to do. They could braid hair very well, but you have to be secure even in time in the studio. Even if you're doing a demo, you can't take 4 hours to do a haircut at a demo. You can't take 4 hours to do a hairstyle if people have got schedules. You have to know what you're doing. And they thought they were going to help each other. They never asked for any assistance, and that's not my role, to find them an assistant.
I mean, that morning I thought on the way there, I'm like, wow, we should have probably got assistance. But I mean, that's just, sometimes you're on a shoot and you have an assistant, sometimes you don't.
And we were like, yeah, we can all help each other and it'll work out fine. And when we got into doing the hair, we realized, oh, everyone's doing something and we're all trying to help one another at the same time. So I think that just made it a lot more challenging and really slowed down our work as well.
In our own heads, we had all these ideas of what we needed to do and the steps involved to do it, but also all with the assumption that we would be available to help each other, and which clearly wasn't happening. I mean, I think within the first hour, we all were completely aware that we had not 4 hands, but just 2.
Got on set with James's model about 3 o'clock, and he'd a great model, and but he only got one chance. He got 20 minutes in front of the camera. With Rebecca, she'd sewn in the wefts, and she was starting to cut it, and just didn't really have it, in the cutting. She was trying, I don't know what she was trying to do, but at that point I was like, look, so I got the scissors and cut it.
I think at that point, after so much time, it was, you find it very difficult to be pleased with yourself. I did think, the haircut that ended up happening, which I had asked Howard to do, I mean, him being there and available, clearly I think his eye would be much stronger than mine. We'd already lost the light, which is, in and of itself, pulls away from the experience because it's not going to be a product that you're going to be as happy with.
Next girl comes up, which was Nikki's model. Nikki Ann, unfortunately, got caught a little bit out with her shape because at some point with braiding you can't go back. You can't really change the shape. I mean, I knew then that I couldn't use the photographs.
Yeah, Michael actually tried to show me and I just kind of didn't really look. It was emotional time because it's a big thing, and I don't, whatever I do, I don't take it for granted or anything. So I'm serious with what I do, and yeah, it was challenging.
So I'm just going through the stuff here, and today we're going to go through the sort of close up the techniques and show what we're doing. What I want to do is, I want you to do yours again.
Okay.
I've got another girl.
Okay.
I think, let this load in, but I'm going to show you
Oh yeah.
just a girl. I mean, I think,
The photo was just so...
I think if anything, we just didn't get enough time.
Like, do you think the hair wasn't good?
I think the hair was good. I think the choice, I think on her it just didn't look good because I felt bad for Nikki Ann because I knew she was hurting. I knew when I told her I wasn't using the shot that it would hurt her, but I'm not going to put out a magazine and her to find out when she's looking through for her photograph that it's not there. Transparency is part of being a leader. You have to tell them the truth. So we came here, gave her another model. She got another chance. She did a fantastic job, much quicker. I think she did it in the time that she was supposed to do the first one. James helped her.
I felt a lot better because it gave me another chance to make it work. Yeah, so far I feel very good about it. And I think that's what matters in the end as well, is how I feel within.
I think this shoot reminded me that as far as a photo shoot goes, the hairdresser is just one person down here, a part of a big team to create something.
But just the doing of things and even willingness to allow yourself to get a little lost is where you're gonna, and make mistakes, is where you're gonna learn the most. So if you present yourself with challenges that you're not sure about, you're gonna get so much more than just doing what you always do.
I just wonder when I walk up to someone now and say, I want you to be in Hairstories, whatever, and you're going to do the challenge, whether they'll just jump out the window because, we push people, and I think the films that we make are real and we don't hide anything, and it shows that there's a human element that it has to be involved in any company, and we keep working towards greater goals and rethinking what we do. And I want to thank the kids for doing it and being open to me and my team for guiding them and putting them on the spot. And I think it's a brilliant challenge, and anybody who watches this should feel slightly honoured that they get to see a process that is unaffected and unaltered. So thank you. In this chapter, what we're going to do is go back and look through the haircuts that we chose using the bob technique and showing you how it relates to what's modern today. We chose 3 different girls with different faces to show you that the face really can cultivate the haircut and lead you to where you want to go with the haircut. With Eugenia, she reminded me of a little boy, sort of almost like a little Dutch boy, as you see on a can of paint sometimes, and quite a fresh face. I decided to go in and give her a square bob. So we started right at the front. Cutting in the fringe really gives you the direction for the rest of the haircut. I use the points of my scissors just to create a little jagged edge, but as you see when it's finished, it creates quite a strong line. Now, when you do that, you really have to start and determine the lengths that are going to be right for the rest of the haircut. So right here was my chance to do that. So after cutting in the fringe, I moved to the back and also changed tools here. I went for the razor because it's the tool that will give me the softer effect. I did a slight undercut with the razor and then worked on a classic graduation. But instead of moving up the head, I kept my graduation quite low. This would keep the squareness through the haircut as well. This is a technique taken from the graduated bob from Design Studio at BBU. And we continue right to the sides using the razor, but keeping our movement quite low. Again, we want to have a strong line there so we're not using too much motion. We continue through a couple of sections until we get to the very top section, which switch back to the scissors and we chip in that last piece. Again, that will just give us a little bit of an overhang, a slightly jagged edge, but when you see it work together, it creates a very strong line. Okay, so we're done with the cut. Not a huge amount of hair coming off, but the right amount, and you can see the look just come together in Eugenia's face. Now for the styling, I want to go in and first of all use the thickening spray and create a little bit of grip in the hair, and then come in with the styling balm just to finish it off. Now the combination of both these products will give me a bit of separation, hold, and allow me to move my fingers through it. And with these cuts, you'll see me use my hands to dry because I think hairdressers have sort of moved away too much from the actual hands and using brushes instead, but there's nothing that can replace, obviously, your hands. And just going through and drying it out, pulling the hair out a little bit, creating a much more square, sort of bluntish edge. So throughout Hairstories, you've seen us going back to reflect on Antoine in the 1920s, Vidal in the 1960s, and then Christian in the 80s. For us at Bumble, we really started doing bobs in the 80s, and it was a great chance and opportunity for us to go back and reflect through some of the haircuts that have made us who we are today. So that's why I went back to this 80s type tool of the crimping iron, and it's really not the tools that make it work, it's the ideas and how you apply it and when to apply it that's appropriate and makes it modern. A little bit difficult to look at because it's an old texture and difficult to sort of revitalise in your mind. Went right over the crimping with the flat iron, and that just gave me a sort of brand new kind of texture, a combination of both flattening and the crimping. Still looked a little bit too retro for me, so I used the styling wax just to go in and break it up. Now this gave me a little bit more sort of control over it and break down the texture a little bit. So again, that's products, old tools, but new ideas really make the haircuts come to life and make them modern. I think throughout the Hairstories you've seen that how one simple haircut can change through the use of the face. With Nicoletta's hair, after speaking to her, doing a consultation, decided something, she already had a bob, so went in something a bit shorter, and I chose to use a sort of combination of what I loved about Antoine, and what I loved about Vidal Sassoon. With Antoine it was that softness and movement, and with Vidal was the structured lines. So remember, I'm trying to get to a round shape here, and the idea is to take the razor and go through, starting at the nape and using our classic graduation with the razor, moving up and round the nape. Now, with the subsections, you have to undercut these a little bit, because if they interfere with your shape, it will throw it back into a square look through there. It's important you keep that very round as you move up towards the jaw. And using the back end of the razor, not a lot of movement, but enough, and removing enough weight that have that softness, because remember, I'm going to come back and work with the scissors. Now, if none of this razor talk or graduation with razors makes sense to you, then I advise you to come to BBU and take a class on razor graduation, either through a design workshop or in design studio. So through the top layers of the haircut, you've seen me go through with the razor and really go in quite heavily with it to remove a lot of weight. Now this will help two things. It will help the shape and roundness of it because I'm removing weight. But as I come back through and work with the scissor, now this is where I can get the strength of the look by going back, using just the very tips, cutting in that stronger line, and that's what sort of takes me back to that sort of Sassoon era of the strong lines, but with the internal softness, as you'll see when we start to go through and style it, you'll just pull all that together. Now in cutting the fringe, it's a common question, how much do you cut? Well, for me it's the amount that will make sense to be a fringe, and not try to be wispy or too heavy, overbearing. And what I did here was start just through the underneath, taking a couple of sections, and with the scissors I actually cut it into a slight point through the front, because it actually will give you more of a square look if you do that, working to the center and then working through the other side quite strong with the scissors, just a very blunt cut, and using a few layers just to build it up, and making sure that the lengths are appropriate for, first of all, her look, and that they balance each other out. So after finishing the haircut, checking it through my vent brush, I wanted to get something quite separate from a texture to finish for the photograph, so I went with the Sumo wax and I heated it up as we do. Not a bad amount, I'm not scared of using the wax, but because I know what effect I'm looking for. A lot of separation, a lot of shine, and most of all, I can maneuver the hair, I can move it around, it's not stiff. So that was the idea of sort of even pulling that old sort of 1920s Antoine brilliantine kind of look together, but bringing it up to date with the Sumo wax. For the second look, remember I've got the wax in it, so Does It All was the product I chose here just to break that down, and a small flat iron. Just going through and just smoothing that out, really pushing the products into the hair. Still want a lot of movement, that's why Does It All was the choice, and going through every section with a flat iron, just sometimes bending it, moving it, sometimes very flat through the fringe, and just then pushing it around my hands to finish it, and really seeing the textures, the combination of the razor and the scissor come to life. And with Veronica, I knew using her before in Hairstories 2 and 4 that I had a winner here, so going in and probably giving her the shortest haircut she's had, I started with the razor, and again a technique that I've taken from Design Studio, with a technique we call the women's short layers, and I swapped out the tool. In Design Studio we use the scissors, but here I wanted to use and take out a lot more weight, so I used the razor. And starting from the crown, working my way down, roughening the shape, getting my idea in there, and as we go through we'll see I finish off with the scissors. With this technique, what we're actually doing is creating the shape from the inside out. We're not creating an outside shape and then layering it, so you have a lot more control. And as I said earlier, if you don't know what we're talking about, please come to school and you'll find out quite quickly. So changing directions a few times with the razor just to make sure I'm roughing the shape in. I come back to the scissors, and this is where I'll get more control and a stronger line. And I'm using the scissors to get a stronger line. If I want to maintain the softness, I would have stuck with the razor. So starting through the front, cutting in that little area right above the eye, it just gives me an idea to go back through and sort of do quite a crooked fringe here and not go for something so square. This is what I call a sort of micro bob, and it's, you'll see where we take out the sides right from the recession down into the length, right at the tip of the ear. Going through with the scissors, sort of adjusting, and this is where you're really taking control and finishing off the haircut. This is where you really have to look and see if you're where you want to be with the haircut and adjust as you have to. Finishing off here with the grooming cream, pushing it all the way through the hair, roots to ends, and then again coming back with a surf spray. Now, why surf spray? I wanted that combination and the grip and that little bit of looseness you get with that combination. Perfect for summer hair and obviously perfect for short hair. So going through, making sure we've got enough on, and then letting it dry, just pushing the hair around my fingers right before the photograph. And as you can see, fantastic look.